Hey, so I think we simply just need to talk about what just happened with the January 2026 jobs report, even though it's already February, because it matters now more than ever if you want to prepare for what's to come, and simply because almost nobody was breaking it down the way it actually needed to be gone over. On the surface, we were seeing headlines everywhere saying 130,000 jobs added, unemployment drops to 4.3%, economy looking solid. But buried in that same report is something absolutely wild that should make every single one of you question whether these government numbers are even trustworthy anymore. And seriously, why didn't the reports actually cover the important details? It doesn't matter because I am going to go into it now. So to start off, the Bureau of Labor Statistics just quietly revised 2025's job numbers and erased over 400,000 jobs from the books. Jobs that they told us existed last year, yeah, they didn't actually exist. And when you dig into what January's good news actually means for regular people like you trying to find work, pay bills, or switch careers, the story gets even worse. I know a lot of you are watching this feeling confused because the headlines say one thing, but your actual experience in the job market feels completely different. Maybe you've been applying everywhere and hearing nothing back. Maybe your hours got cut. Maybe you're watching your company do layoffs while the news says everything's fine. You're not crazy. There's a massive disconnect here. And I'm going to walk you through exactly what's happening, what these numbers actually mean versus what politicians want you to believe. And most importantly, what you need to do right now to protect yourself. So if you want the real breakdown of economic data and not just the headline propaganda, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe because we're diving deep into this. Let's start with the headline number everyone's celebrating. 130,000 jobs added in January 2026. Now on paper, that sounds okay, right? Jobs are being created, unemployment dropped from 4.4% to 4.3%. Everything's moving in the right direction. But here's what they're not telling you in those cheerful morning news segments. First, January typically sees way more job growth than 130,000. We're talking, this is actually a pretty weak January historically. But more importantly, let me explain what just got revealed about 2025. The government uses something called benchmark revisions, where they go back and correct their estimates from the previous year once they get real data from actual business tax records and unemployment insurance filings. And guys, the 2025 revision is absolutely brutal. They originally told us throughout 2025 that we added 584,000 jobs for the year. The revised number, 181,000. They overestimated by 403,000 jobs. Those jobs never existed. Think about that for a second. Throughout all of 2025, every month when you heard jobs report looking strong, they were counting jobs that weren't real. And 181,000 jobs for an entire year in the United States economy, that's the weakest annual job growth since 2003. And 2003 wasn't exactly a banner year, right? So when you hear politicians and financial media celebrating this January number, understand they're celebrating on top of a foundation that was completely made up. Now let me break down how this happens because this is where it gets technical, but super important for you to understand. The BLS uses what's called the birth-death model to estimate jobs at new businesses that opened and old businesses that closed. They're essentially guessing based on historical patterns. And in 2025, that model was wildly wrong. They assumed way more small businesses were opening and hiring than actually were. So every month, they were adding phantom jobs to the report based on businesses that either didn't exist or didn't hire anyone. This isn't some conspiracy theory. This is the BLS admitting their statistical model failed. But here's the thing that should make you mad. Regular people make life decisions based on these reports. You might have turned down a job offer thinking the market was hot and you'd find something better. Companies made hiring and firing decisions believing the economy was stronger than it was. The Federal Reserve set interest rate policy based on these numbers. And it was all built on a foundation of overcounting that's now being quietly corrected while everyone celebrates the new good numbers. Does that seem right to you? Comment below if you think the government should be held accountable when their economic predictions are this far off, because I personally think this is unacceptable. Let's talk about what January's actual numbers show when you dig past the headline. Yes, 130,000 jobs were added, but where? Here's the breakdown that should concern you. Healthcare added 81,900 jobs, and social assistance added 41,600. That's 123,500 jobs right there. Basically, the entire month's job growth came from healthcare and social services. Now, why is that happening? Partially because our population is aging and we need more healthcare workers, sure. But also, think about this. When the economy is stressing people out, when people can't afford basic needs, when mental health is declining, what sector grows? Healthcare and social services. It's not exactly a sign of a thriving economy when the only jobs being created are the ones taking care of people who are struggling. Meanwhile, retail added about 1,000 jobs. Leisure and hospitality, the sectors that usually lead us out of rough patches, added barely anything. The federal government actually lost jobs. Financial activities lost jobs. This isn't broad-based growth, guys. This is a very specific, very concerning pattern where the only life raft in the job market is healthcare. And even that's probably overestimated if we're being honest based on what happened with 2025's numbers. Now let's address the unemployment rate dropping to 4.3%, because I know some of you are thinking, okay, but unemployment went down. That's good, right? And look, on the surface, yes, fewer people being unemployed is better than more people being unemployed, but you have to understand what that number actually measures and what it misses. The unemployment rate only counts people actively looking for work. If you've been searching for 6 months, gotten rejected from 200 applications, and you're so discouraged you stopped applying last week, you're not in that 4.3% anymore. You just disappeared from the stat. And the number of long-term unemployed, people out of work for 27 weeks or more, is up 386,000 from last year. That's not in the headline, but it's in the report. So you've got a massive increase in people who've been unemployed so long they're running out of savings, burning through retirement accounts, losing their homes, and the headline just says, unemployment dropped, everything's fine. Does that match what you're seeing in your community? Comment what you're actually witnessing where you live, because I want to know if your experience matches these rosy headlines. Here's another piece that reveals how weird this job market actually is right now, what economists are calling the low hire, low fire environment. Companies aren't laying people off in massive waves like a typical recession, but they're also not hiring. So if you have a job, you're probably keeping it, which sounds good until you realize it means you're stuck. You can't move to a better position because nobody's hiring. You can't negotiate a raise because your company knows you have nowhere to go. Recent college graduates are hitting a wall trying to find entry-level positions because companies aren't creating new roles. It's like everyone's frozen in place. The ADP report that came out around the same time showed that small businesses with 20 to 49 employees cut 30,000 jobs in January. Small businesses, guys, the ones that usually drive innovation and job creation, they're cutting. Only the massive corporations and healthcare systems are doing any hiring at all, and even that's concentrated in specific areas. If you're trying to break into a new field right now, or you're unemployed and trying to get back in, you're facing one of the hardest job markets in decades despite what the headlines say. And that's not your fault. That's not because your resume is bad or you're not trying hard enough. The numbers are just fundamentally disconnected from reality. Now, I want to pause here and make something very clear, because I'm not trying to fearmonger or clickbait you like a lot of financial media does. I'm not telling you the sky is falling or that you should panic. What I'm telling you is that you need to understand the difference between what you're being told and what's actually happening, so you can make smart decisions for yourself and your family. Mainstream outlets will either tell you everything's perfect and the economy's booming, or they'll tell you we're headed for apocalypse. Both designed to get clicks and views. I'm not doing that. What I'm doing is walking you through the real data, showing you what it actually means, and giving you practical steps to prepare. Because here's the truth. Whether or not these reports are intentionally misleading or just badly flawed, the result is the same. You can't trust them to make your financial decisions. You have to look at what's actually happening in the real economy, in your industry, in your area, and prepare accordingly. All right? So, stick with me here because we're getting to the part where I tell you exactly what to do about all this. Let's talk about the bigger context here, because this job situation doesn't exist in a vacuum. The Federal Reserve has been keeping interest rates high to fight inflation, which makes it expensive for businesses to borrow money to expand and hire. So even if a company wants to grow, the cost of capital is making them hesitate. At the same time, we're in the middle of this massive AI transition where companies are figuring out how to use artificial intelligence to do work that humans used to do. Now, the actual AI job replacement hasn't happened at scale yet, Most of these tools are still pretty limited, but companies are planning for it. They're not hiring for roles they think AI might be able to do in a year or two. They're cutting middle management layers, betting that AI will let them flatten organizations. And here's the really frustrating part. A lot of companies are using AI as an excuse for cuts that have nothing to do with actual automation. It's what some people are calling AI washing, blaming technology for layoffs that are really just about boosting short-term profits or cutting costs after overhiring during the pandemic. So you've got this perfect storm where interest rates make expansion expensive. AI creates uncertainty about future roles. Companies are using AI as PR cover for regular old cost cutting. And meanwhile, the government is telling you the job market is solid based on numbers they'll probably revise down 6 months from now. You see how all these pieces connect? And we haven't even talked about the government workforce cuts yet. The DOGE initiative, Department of Government Efficiency, has led to over 300,000 job losses when you count direct federal workers and the ripple effects through contractors, nonprofits that lost federal funding, and private sector companies that worked with those agencies. Now, whether you think government should be smaller or not is a political question I'm not going to get into. But what's not political is the economic reality that 300,000 people losing their jobs puts downward pressure on wages, increases competition for remaining jobs, and reduces consumer spending in communities where those workers lived. Especially when a lot of those jobs were in areas that don't have diverse economies, towns that relied heavily on a federal facility or contractor. Those communities are getting hammered right now, and it's not showing up in the headline unemployment number because it's spread across different cities and states. But the pain is very real for the people living through it. So what do you do? How do you navigate a job market where the official numbers say one thing, but the reality you're experiencing says another? Let me walk you through the specific action steps you need to take right now. And guys, this is the most important part of this video, so pay very close attention. First, if you currently have a job, even if you don't love it, do not quit without something else lined up. I know that sounds obvious, but in a normal, healthy job market, you might feel comfortable giving notice and then searching. Right now, don't do it. The low hire environment means you could be unemployed for months, even with a solid resume. If you're miserable, I get it, but start your search while you're still employed and don't move until you have a written offer. The worst position to be in right now is unemployed and competing with hundreds of other people for every single opening. Second, if you're currently employed, become absolutely indispensable at your current job. I'm talking about volunteering for projects nobody else wants, building relationships across departments, documenting your impact with specific numbers and results. The companies that are hiring at all are being extremely selective, but the companies doing layoffs are also being selective about who they keep. You want to be in the category of, this person is too valuable to let go if your company starts making cuts. That might mean taking on extra work that sucks in the short term, but it's insurance for your position. Third, diversify your income if you possibly can. I'm not talking about quit your job and start a business. I'm talking about small side income streams that give you a buffer. That might be freelancing in your field on weekends, selling stuff you don't need, picking up a few hours doing something flexible. The goal isn't to make a full-time income from side work. The goal is to have something coming in that isn't dependent on one employer. So if you do lose your main job, you're not starting from zero while you search. And look, I know you're tired. I know adding more work to your plate sounds exhausting, but consider it temporary insurance during a really uncertain time. Fourth, build your emergency fund to at least 6 months of expenses if you can, and if you can't, build it to whatever you can. The old rule was 3 months. Given how long people are staying unemployed right now, remember, long-term unemployment is up 386,000. You want more runway. Cut expenses anywhere you can temporarily. I'm talking like cancel subscriptions you don't use, eat out less, delay purchases that aren't essential. Every dollar you can sock away right now is one more week you can pay your bills if something happens to your income. I know prices are high and it's hard to save anything, but even $50 a week adds up to $2,600 over a year. That could be the difference between making rent and not making rent if you lose your job. Fifth, update your resume and LinkedIn right now, today, even if you're not actively looking. Make sure every accomplishment from the past year is documented with specific metrics. Increased sales means nothing. Increased sales, sales 23% year over year, resulting in $400,000 additional revenue means during the sales. $10,000 means something. Get recommendations from coworkers and supervisors while you're still working together. Set your LinkedIn to show you're open to opportunities in the settings. Recruiters will see it, but your current employer won't if you do it right. You want to be ready to move quickly if an opportunity appears, because in this market, das bezeichnung quagdaj oucher NC jobs was as chiagin whiteishi jacket 100 suindradas why as a fatara the CB and of applications within hours of posting. Sixth, network like your career depends on it, because it might. Most jobs aren't posted publicly anymore. They're filled through referrals and internal candidates before they ever hit a job board. Reach out to old colleagues, go to industry events even if you don't feel like it, join professional associations, comment on LinkedIn posts in your field. I know networking feels gross and transactional, but think of it as building genuine relationships that might help you or might help them. You're not using people. You're being part of a professional community. And when someone you know hears about an opening, you want to be the first person they think of. Seventh, start learning the skills that are actually in demand in your field right now. If you're in any kind of office job, that probably means AI tools. Learn how to use ChatGPT, Claude, or whatever's relevant to your industry to do your job better. Companies are looking for people who can use these tools to increase productivity, not people who are threatened by them. Take free courses, watch YouTube tutorials, practice on your own projects. The people who survive this transition are going to be the ones who learn to work alongside AI, not the ones who ignore it, hoping it goes away. And if you're in a field that's getting automated, consider pivoting to adjacent roles that are harder to automate. Anything involving complex human interaction, creative problem solving, or physical skills that robots can't easily replicate yet. Eighth, know your industry's actual hiring reality, not the national numbers. The National Jobs Report might say things are fine, but if you're in retail, tech, finance, or media, the story is very different than if you're in healthcare. Research what's happening specifically in your sector and your geographic area. Talk to people doing similar work. Look at actual job postings and see if they're increasing or decreasing. The more granular you get, the better decisions you can make. Don't let a national headline about healthcare jobs make you feel good if you're in an industry that's actively contracting. Ninth, and this is hard to hear but important, be realistic about your timeline if you're currently searching. If you've been applying for a month with no interviews, something needs to change in your approach. Maybe your resume isn't getting past the automated systems. Maybe you're applying to jobs that are too senior or not senior enough. Maybe your LinkedIn presence is weak. Get feedback from people who hire in your field. Consider working with a career coach if you can afford it. The old advice of just keep applying doesn't work when you're competing with hundreds of people for every role. You need strategy, not just volume. 10th, protect your mental health through this. If you're unemployed and getting rejected constantly, or if you're stuck in a job you hate with no way out, that takes a psychological toll that's very real. Talk to people who get it. Take breaks from the job search when you need to. Remember that your worth as a person isn't determined by employment status. You're valuable regardless of whether some company hired you this month. I know that's easier said than done when bills are due, but burning yourself out doesn't or help anyone. Take care of yourself so you can keep going. And finally, 11th, vote with your feet if you need to. If you're in an area where your industry has dried up and there's no realistic path forward locally, start looking at cities or states where your skills are in demand. I know moving is expensive and leaving your community is hard, but staying in a place with no opportunities can trap you in long-term unemployment or underemployment that's even more expensive. Research which cities are actually hiring in your field, what cost of living is there, and make a plan. Sometimes the best move is the hardest one. Look guys, I wish I could tell you that the job market is as good as the headlines say. I wish these government reports were accurate and you could trust them to make decisions. But the reality is that we're in one of the weirdest, most challenging job markets in decades, and you're being given misleading information about it. The 2025 revisions proved that the numbers you were hearing all last year were wrong. The concentration of January's job growth in healthcare, while other sectors stagnate, shows this isn't broad economic strength. The surge in long-term unemployment that nobody's talking about shows people are really struggling despite the low headline rate. And whether this is intentional manipulation or just incompetent statistical modeling, the result is the same. You need to stop trusting these reports and start trusting what you're seeing in the real world. This isn't about fear. This is about preparation. The people who come out of this period in good shape are going to be the ones who saw reality clearly, didn't wait for permission to protect themselves, and took action before they had to. So please, take these steps seriously. Build your emergency fund, make yourself valuable at work, network, learn new skills, prepare for a longer, harder job search than the headlines suggest you need to. And comment below what you're seeing in your industry and your area. Because we need to hear from real people about real conditions, not just polished government statistics that'll get revised later. If this breakdown helped you understand what's actually happening beyond the headlines, do me a favor and hit that like button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. A lot of people are feeling crazy because their experience doesn't match what they're being told, and they need to know they're not imagining it. Subscribe to this channel if you want weekly breakdowns of economic data that actually matter to your life. And if you want to go even deeper on preparing financially for economic uncertainty, I've got resources linked below that walk you through exactly how to bulletproof your finances. Remember, your future self is depending on decisions you make today. Take care of yourself and the people you love. Until the next video.